So, do you disagree politically with your friends? Does it make you nervous? Does it make you want to prove your point? Does it make you want to shut yourself down? Well, good news. That's what we're talking about today here on Your Calm Mind podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ellie, and then your other host is Pamela. Hi, Pamela. All right. So, who are we talking about? Uh, we talk about those friends who disagree with us and have really crazy, screwy ideas about the world who we find very upsetting. Who are these people?
Hi, I think everyone in general right now, friends, family members, which is the crazy one. You thought like family would just all agree, right? But not these days. And also like coworkers, sometimes neighbors. I don't know. Anyone and everyone that we come in contact with. I think these days, it's just crazy. We're disagreeing with each other, which is okay. But for some reason, I'm finding that it's a bigger problem these days than I've ever seen it. Maybe because of my age or whatever. People are definitely not happy with each other these days.
Yeah, and it can happen very suddenly. You're having a very mild conversation about anything, and then all of a sudden you find out that they voted for somebody that you hate, and it can get you fired up all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I've had conversations with friends recently where we were both shocked at each other because we were disagreeing on stuff. I remember a friend of mine tell me, "I can't believe like that I had no idea." And so it's I've known it always, but it didn't matter. But now friends and family and neighbors are finding this out in a hot conversation. It's like the vibration is low and it's just like erupting people so quickly.
yeah, and for me personally, my first reaction is to just, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, we're going to take a detour. I'm not
Yeah.
convinced that that's the most healthy thing to do because it's just my fight or flight response is more of a freeze response and avoid, avoid, avoid. So I'm glad we're talking about this because I don't think I necessarily need to stay frozen, but I also don't need to be in a fight response.
It's also what we've been taught.
So I'm,
Not
yeah,
talk to people about politics, do not talk to people about religion, and do not talk to them about their salary or money. That's something that's been embedded in us to be safe and politically right. Do not go there. It's shocking because the people that you dearly care about, like your best friends or your family members or people that you spend a lot of time with, like at work, you think like those people it's okay, but now it's not okay. So it's created a
yeah,
conflict for sure.
yeah. It
For
definitely throws
sure.
you off your balance when this happens.
For
Yeah.
sure. With the people I work with and also just amongst friends where everyone's like on the edge and angry. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
You don't live in the US.
I mean, since I'm in China, it's a much lighter atmosphere. I just notice it when I have video chats with my American friends, and
But
there are little
it is
landmines in the conversation that blow up.
but it is
Yeah.
affecting globally. I see it triggering, especially to my European friends. I see that because
Mm.
current events of the US politics, at what's going on with Europe being affected with all the war and so on. So I see it trickling down to that part of the world, and eventually everyone's going to be affected by it.
Well, I think China's a very different culture, and it's almost a different reality. People don't take things so heavy politically. They're able to just kind of roll with it.
You're good at
So
keeping a calm
definitely
mind.
US. Yeah, in this area anyway. So something I want to draw a circle around is just the larger philosophical issue of there's what it's like to have that tense moment with your friend, but it's how can you stay true to yourself? It's not like you have to bow down to your friend and just pretend like you agree with them. What we're also saying, I think what we're getting to is that you don't need to tell them how you feel and attack and explain to them why they're wrong. There's actually a middle way here.
Yeah, for
Is
sure.
that what we're saying?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
You mentioned fight or flight. That's just like how we're programmed, right? To defend ourselves constantly or hiding and sometimes even freezing. We do whatever it takes to protect ourselves. But I think what we're going to get down to, how is it affecting us? And obviously not affecting our mental, because I see that people are there on the edge, they're sad, they're in mourning and so on. And there's
Yeah.
like, how do we keep a balance without hurting each other?
Well, obviously, as coaches and as people who are wanting to talk about this in a non polarizing way, the unsexy answer that I think we've generally agreed on here is that it's some form of compassion and empathy, which when you're fired up and you feel like the world's on fire and we need to put this fire out right now and I've got the answer, empathy and compassion just doesn't sound appealing.
It's like the last thing that comes to our conscious mind to practice or do. It's like
No.
that's last resort.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be like a monk to be
You
able
don't
to do
stand for
that.
anything.
Pardon me?
Yeah, a monk who lives this easy life, off in a mountain, doesn't have to deal with these material realities.
Yeah.
No.
So how do we do this? This compassion.
Well, if you're still listening and you're still willing, you're probably an exceptional person. Or you're in a lot of pain and you're just like, okay, I can't take this anymore. So I guess now we can go on and explain, like, why bother with compassion and empathy? I mean, aren't we just going to let the world burn if we do that? Like, how would you respond to that?
I believe like humans are created to be in community, and we need relationships. Based on the current events like the pandemic, we were isolated for a while. I know people who are still depressed because of their isolation and loss of human contact. They've lost how to communicate and be social. I feel it's sad because we've lost our ways of what we're meant to be. If you don't practice kindness or compassion and other things, you just literally will lose relationships, right? Meaningful relationships sometimes even, or you will end up alone,
Yeah.
or you will end up sad, or you will feel angry because you feel like you're misunderstood. I don't think anybody wants to be like that. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Well, and the deeper you go into what you're describing, the more you lose touch with why you ever wanted to be around people, because it just seems like a losing venture. I got my cat, I got my dog, I don't need people.
Yeah.
But
Then
what
you
we're
become
saying,
then you become a
go on.
robot. It's like you're just this individual. You might as well be in the wilderness somewhere. And try to do everything alone. I think
Yeah.
like humans are not meant to be alone. You don't get anything done alone.
Yeah, I think that's the only way you'd want to keep listening to our conversation is you'd have to believe in that supposition that we're not meant to be alone. We need each other. If you don't believe that, then you're just like, nope, I don't need this. But if you're like, maybe I do need people, maybe a little bit sometimes, then it's worth listening to what we're saying.
There is a saying in Farsi that you cannot clap your hands with one hand. It's true. If you want something done, you need community, you need unity, you need more than one body, like the whole thing of it takes a village to raise a child and so on. So yeah, with a lot of things that bring us humans joy, it has to do with community. In fact, I think I mentioned this before, like in blue, they've done research in blue zones. The people who do well, who stay healthy, are the ones who are in a community, surrounded with others. They do life together. So it's like there's a statistic like when a husband loses his wife, his lifespan shortens. And vice versa, when a woman is living alone, her life is shortened by so and so percentages, because even though husband and wives fight all the time and life is not always easy in marriage, but yet you bring quality to each other's life if it's a healthy marriage and you elongate someone's life. It's the same in humanity. If you do things alone, it's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's a healthy marriage, that's the underlying point.
Yeah.
I have experience having been in a long-term relationship where it wasn't healthy and I would have been better off alone. And now I have the experience of being in a marriage where it's healthy and I feel grateful. I feel like my life is happier. I'm a happier person.
See?
Of course, I still have moments of loneliness, but it's nothing like it was before. I had to change internally to where I could even stand to be with somebody. Even a wonderful person that you love is hard to be around all the time. I mean, I still am happy when he needs to go out and do things. I get to be by myself, with whatever opinionated podcasts I want to listen to. I enjoy that time. But if I was always just by myself, which I used to be, it's not good. It's lonely, it's isolating. I don't think it's good for us humans. I would agree.
I
It's a
like what
skill like you were talking about.
I like what you mentioned
There
about
is.
so going with what we're talking about when you're in a situation, a friendship, a relationship, something where two people are disagreeing on a topic and initial reaction is to no, you're wrong, no, I'm right, go back and forth, which could escalate, and then you either fall out of this relationship with anger, hurt each other with the words that you say, or just end this relationship, which if you keep on ending relationships and relationships that doesn't serve you, then you will end up being solo. So how do we, like you said, change yourself? How do you take your power, um, extend your power or recharge your power? How do you use your power to not letting this happen?
Right. I think we're going to touch on that. I think we have our ideas about that, but I want to stay on this because I think it's really important because when you're in that moment and you're feeling betrayed, even disappointed, let down, you feel like the walls are closing in on you. There has to be a decision that you make in that moment that you're going to behave differently outside of fight or flight. You're not going to freeze and you're not going to attack. Hold on. Go on.
I heard a story recently of this two coworkers who were like really good coworkers having lunch together all the time, chatting, but then suddenly one coworker doesn't even want to look at the other coworker in the face and no longer wants to have lunch with this person just because they found out that the other party is like against them, against like their belief system or their values because of they chose a different political party. So it's wow, like 1 minute you're like having lunch and then the other minute you're judging the other person because they chose to not be on the same page with you. Scary.
Yeah, and it's one thing to talk about it, in theory. Those silly people who can't think past their political differences, and then when you're actually in it and you have strong beliefs for your own good reasons, make that decision now before you get with your friend, coworker, family member who's going to disagree with you to not react.
Yep. Not react, which is so hard to do.
It sounds unsatisfying.
It's not romantic.
But they're wrong. They're clearly wrong for this reason, this reason, this reason. I know. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
upsetting.
it's like, sorry, Ellie, what were you saying?
Well, I wasn't saying anything. There's such a delay in this recording that we were like
Yeah.
in space reactions. So, what are we suggesting that someone do if they want to keep that friendship, if they're tired of feeling shocked and like fight or flight, if they believe that there's a point in keeping people in their life and they don't want to feel isolated, what can they do? What are we saying?
Before and foremost, I think we have to remember that I have just as much right, and so does the other party, to feel what they're feeling. So there's no really right or wrong. It's just two different beliefs and values. I
That's a
want to
hard
say,
one.
like, you cannot change that person's mind by your reaction. But if that relationship is worth it for you to keep, then you have to try. And how do you try? What do we talk about? Like, maybe we can come up with 3 things we could do. What do you think?
Right. Well, the first thing I said was be humble. And then as soon as that came out of my mouth, I was like, that's easier said than done. So maybe more realistically is take a breath. When you notice, uh-oh, it's happening, my friend is crazy and they have the wrong belief, before you shut down or attack, take a breath. What do you think?
Every time we react with anything, it's just our way of protecting ourselves. And studies shows that
Yeah.
if you allow yourself to breathe for whatever you're feeling, anger, sad, depressed, just happy or whatever, if you just let yourself breathe and just marinate in that feeling, how your body's feeling and what's happening before you react for 90 seconds or more, your body will naturally tell your brain that you're safe. It's okay to have these feelings. It's okay to be like crazy, angry, and mad, and so on and so on. Therefore, you have more chance of making smarter decisions of how you're going to react rather than just doing something that you're going to regret in the future that can affect this relationship. So, yes, absolutely. Take a deep breath and just let it wash over you. Keep on breathing if you can. Have a reminder, when something goes crazy, someone says, I don't like what they're saying. I'm just going to breathe through it for at least 90 seconds, which is not that long, but just while perhaps you're listening to the person, you could just breathe it out. So you breathe it to be humble. And then we would do, Ellie?
I want to piggyback on what you're saying, because I think what's also really critical here is that it's really hard to do this, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But there's a big reward in this, not only in listening to we're assuming this is a friend here. There's something redeemable about this person. You like something about this coworker, family member, friend. Like they're worth it on some level, you must believe.
You
But the
look
other
very smart.
thing here is that this is also great practice for being with your own thoughts, which is we're all running away from our own thoughts all the time. That's why it's hard to not look at your phone all the time. It's why we go to the bathroom with our phone. We do not want to be with our thoughts. If you can sit with your friend's thought, then that's going to increase the ability that you can sit with your own. And there's 1,000 reasons why that's good. But without going down that tangent. Yeah, it's a type of exercise, just sitting there with your own thoughts. It's a type of meditation, I suppose.
Plus, when you're listening to someone, it gives them a sense of this person cares enough to let me express myself.
Mhm.
Person
Yeah.
is important enough for you to just listen rather than just jump and say, no, I disagree or you're wrong and so on. Person, if that relationship is worth it for you, then you should give them a benefit of the doubt and just give them an opportunity to express themselves first before you have anything else to say.
Yeah, I think it's part of being
It's really hard.
it's hard, and it's part of being a mature adult, which is very hard, I think. Yeah, not easy. All right.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add after that?
Also, what I added to our previous conversation was how would I want to be treated if this is what
Right.
I was going through? So you have to let the person go through what they're going through. But then at the same time, compassion comes from there too, like mirroring it towards ourselves. What if that was me going through what they're going through? Like releasing our anger or expressing ourselves. Like, how would I want to be treated? Would I want to be right away told, no, you're wrong, I disagree with you, blah, blah, blah? Or do I just want to be heard first and just be like, it's okay to disagree, agree to disagree. So it's okay to not be on the same page with someone. But if I'm going to call someone my friend, or I'm going to spend time with a coworker that is worthy of my time, or I'm worthy of their time, I got to give them respect. Respect comes with treating them the way I want to be treated as well. So maybe just listen to them. That's enough. But yeah, that is very important for me. I always want to treat people the way I want to be treated.
The golden rule. So step one is try to be humble. If you can't do that, take a breath and just sit in it. The next step is listen closely, or the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated, assuming that you like to be listened to, which in my experience, people like to be listened to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Listen closely, which can be so painful when they have such stupid thoughts. Where do they,
I think most of
this
the
is
time,
directly contradicting what I know.
yeah, I think most of the time we get in trouble is it's not what we don't say, it's what we say. So the opposite is it's not what you say, it's what you don't say that can keep things calm. So by doing that, it's just listening. We're not saying anything, we're just listening. And that can create a peace. Even if you don't agree with each other, it could start a peace.
You never get in trouble for what you don't say.
Yeah.
It's what you do say.
Sure.
But
It
we're
could be
also
vice
not
versa
saying
too.
repress yourself, deny your thoughts.
No,
We're
I
not
don't
saying
mean like
either.
that.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get in trouble for what they didn't say rather than what they said. But if you're trying to practice listening or creating a space for the other party to express themselves or tell you why they think they are right, listening is fundamental. It shows compassion that I care enough about you. I'm letting you express yourself. So you just need to listen actively.
Yeah. And just to encourage us all, it sounds easy, but it's not.
Hard.
If you find yourself losing patience and not able to do it, that's all right. You just keep trying. It's very triggering. It's messy, but I think it's worth pursuing, trying.
For sure.
All right. So we're saying be humble, take a breath, listen closely, err on the side of saying less than of saying more. Give people a chance to express themselves. You might be surprised how much even that just calms the conversation, letting somebody get it all out and be
Yeah.
a form of therapy, frankly. Letting somebody express themselves fully.
I
You
heard
might even learn something.
I heard a relationship therapist say one time that practice with your lover, especially women, I think, because we talk more than men do, but we get upset because we're talking and then our partner doesn't say anything back or starts saying something back, and then we get upset because he's putting a 2 cents into what we're saying. But then he was teaching, just tell your partner, I don't need your opinion or I don't need you to tell me what to do. I just need you to listen. Asking for their ear, it's healing itself. We just want to be heard. That's all.
Right.
A therapy where people just listen and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. True. I think some people find that frustrating. It's like, well, what's the point of that? But you're saying that it's magical. You might find it magical. Right.
That too.
You like it. Yeah. All right. And so then step 3 of all this is as best you can put yourself in their shoes, which is it's not such obvious advice, but Worth
Yeah.
doing. Speaking for myself, I grew up in a non-religious family, and I had this habit for most of my life where as soon as somebody made it clear to me that they are in any way religious, I would mentally put a line through their name like, oh, this is an idiot. Okay. And I didn't think that was limiting myself. I was just like, okay, I just know that this is an idiot. And I put them in a different category. It's taken the last 5 to 10 years for me to realize that that's incredibly arrogant and just not necessary. People are different than me and they have different experiences, and I can learn from them and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Most religion, their goal is love and like acceptance.
I didn't grow up hearing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It should
See,
that, I think.
listen.
But yeah, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, it's all our divine love and also love for each other and acceptance of each other. So, why I mentioned this is that I think overall, like we all mean the same, want the same thing. It just sometimes because we're turned off when we hear the word religion, we get a little crazy. But ultimately, if someone can express their faith in a loving manner, if it makes them a better person, I mean, it's the opposite of being idiot. But
And
we've had bad experiences,
it's
some of us.
individual.
Yes, it's an individual thing. But if so, sometimes you can come to conclusion based on your own feelings because sometimes you've had bad experience. So I totally understand that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've met people who stamp the word Christian on their forehead and want me to know that they're Christian, and then I just find them to be hypocritical. And then
Mm.
other people I know are very quiet about their faith and they're extremely giving and gracious. So it's just, I don't know, people say one thing and then you just judge them on their actions. Really, ultimately.
What else?
We've been talking for about 35 minutes.
Okay.
I feel like I might have been making us go too quickly. I just want to underline that we're not really served by trying to convince people that they're wrong. It feels like it in the moment,
Yeah.
but it really pushes us apart.
There's always
What are
for
your
every
thoughts?
story, both sides could be right and both sides could be wrong. We get no benefits out of allowing our emotions to push us apart because we need each other. We need relationships. It's valuable to have good relationships. So, how do you agree to disagree with a friend? You just practice compassion, you practice patience, you practice listening, you practice calming yourself down first by breathing before you react.
Yeah.
And then you practice by asking the question, like, how would I want to be treated if I was in this person's shoes?
Are you ready to summarize what we've talked about so far?
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about how it's really stressful when our friends and family and coworkers have crazy beliefs that are different from ours, when they're politically very different from us. And we've introduced the idea that we should have compassion and be empathetic, and how hard that is. But we think it's worth it anyway because humans need each other. I didn't know that for a long time, but I'm on the humans need each other train. We had this idea that step one, be humble, but realistically, take a breath. Step two, listen closely, golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated.
Yes.
To be listened to, and that it is hard to listen to other people, but do it anyway. Try it.
Yes.
And three, ultimately, the goal is to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And you're probably only going to be willing to do this because you find something redeeming about your friend, your coworker, your family member. There's something in there that's worth it for you. There's something good there. So you're going to imagine what it's like to be them. And if you believed like they believed, you'd probably feel this way too.
Absolutely.
And so now I think we want to focus on why do this? What's the ultimate successful outcome that we get from listening to our friends with their crazy political beliefs? Why bother? What do you say?
It's to preserve and maintain our relationships and to keep ourselves from being on the edge all the time. Ultimately, it's just to be calmer, like, because, and have lasting good relationships and not be in conflict constantly with others and be happy and be healthy. So there's a lot of benefits, but to be good. So does
What
that
if you feel
resonate?
like it sounds very idealistic? Of course, I agree with you, but I'm trying to think devil's advocate. These people have messed up ideas. Like they're going to end the country. We're going to be in prison for having wrong think. Like we've got to show these people the error of their ways, or we're dead. Like what can we do if we feel and think like that?
Well, yeah, one can choose not to associate with someone who's wrong or they don't agree with. I get that. So you don't have to, it's to maintain some kind of balance or calm in the world. We get so hot headed when something is going in a wrong direction. We want to fix it and we partake in the social collective movement of fixing it. A lot of times we get lost in this idea as our anger or disappointment escalates. It's so hard at that time to be like optimistic or to be loving and caring and compassionate and so on and so on. But like what happens is we end up losing our own calm, peace, and license to be who we are and our power. Then we're in conflict with others and everything's miserable. So we have a lot to lose with not being able to fix things. I know that we have to participate in what we believe and stand for it. I get that. If you see a bunch of robbers and you disagree with them, don't go beating them down. Maybe you can like distance yourself from that. I get that. But I feel like the romantic notion is we get so excited about fixing something that is so hard to fix. You can make better choices in voting and so on. What I'm trying to say is we try to fix the world where it's harder to fix by ourselves. But then sometimes we forget about the neighbor or the one friend we have down the street or our small communities around us that we can actually have an effect or change something and more tangible way. So like if everyone did that with the circle that they're in, the world would be a better place. No, instead of getting so crazy about why is so and so doing something that we don't have control over, maybe we could do what we can do, which is have control over what we have control over. Am I making a point? Do you
Yeah.
understand what I'm
I
saying?
I've had lots of thoughts and I keep losing them because you keep making different points that I want to come back around on. It's the romantic notion that you're going to pick the right words and explain to your friend why they're wrong. It's not going to happen. You're better off relating to what their reality is, seeing their point of view and enjoying what you do like about them
Yeah. I
and
like what you
being,
said, enjoying
yeah,
what you do like about them. Hands
yeah.
on. They're not
Let go of the romantic notion or the pressure to think that you've got to change your screwed up friend's mindset because it's not going to happen.
we're not in the business of if we can't change ourselves, what gives us the right or the thought that we can change others? Sometimes
Right.
so that I mean, there's no way, like, we cannot change others.
Let
We can
go.
ourselves, but not,
Yeah.
and that's hard to yourself. How are we going to do it to another person?
The odds
Yeah.
of doing it to another person are so slim. I noticed that I have something I want to tell somebody, I want to share a lesson or a thought, and rarely do people receive it the way I intended it. And they actually learn other things from me that I didn't intend to teach them. So we don't really seem to have
No,
much control over how we're received anyway.
no.
So we're better off just focusing on what we can control about ourselves and enjoying what we can about other people. The payoff in all this is that we get to feel calm. We get to feel true to ourselves. We get to show our ability to be mature, respectful adults who can listen to another person and hear them. It actually feels good. So,
Yeah,
why shouldn't we keep indulging in fight or flight?
because we want to have our own power, like taking our power back, and we want to have impact. I think if I understand your question correctly, like we should not do this because we want to be like whole and still in a way so that we could be more powerful and impactful. Am I making sense?
I'm trying to remind us of what we were saying at the beginning. If we keep on this way, being right, Xing people out of our lives for disagreeing with us politically, it's very isolating, it's very lonely, and ultimately it's not necessary.
It's not healthy.
Um, no,
There's a lot of for sure.
it's depressing.
Yeah. I mean, we saw this during the pandemic. A lot of people are
Yeah.
depressed because of the amount of isolation they had. So
Yeah.
they say the number one cause of death is being alone because so many things just start shutting down besides your mind, your emotions, your heart. Loneliness can trigger a lot of negative aspects in our life. So, not good.
So you're better off being with your irritating friend. Or rather,
I
let your, yeah, go on.
I find it fascinating that if you hug someone for 20 seconds, it releases endorphins in your brain that makes you feel safe and calm and loved. And it's just like it's one of the coolest things.
Bear it
Seconds of
out.
holding someone makes them feel happy without even realizing it.
Can
20
you
seconds
hug?
can have, imagine what listening to your
Yeah,
friend does.
hug your neighbor, hug your crazy, hug your
Hug
crazy
yeah,
neighbor
hug
with the
anyone.
weird
Hug
belief.
the tree.
And if you can't do that, sit still for 90 seconds. Oh, we're asking a lot of people.
Hug yourself with a
Hug
smile.
yourself. Actually,
Yeah,
yeah, it does work. It does work. Hug yourself.
does work. Yeah.
I think the most practical thing that stood out to me is that it's a romantic idea that you can change somebody's mind. You might be able to, but it's not going to be on your time frame. They're more likely to see your point of view if you're open to seeing theirs and you have something that you can connect with each other on. And then it becomes less and less important about them seeing how wrong they are.
Yeah, because then there's something about when you're with someone, when you make them feel comfortable and safe in your presence, because then they can talk about everything and anything, and they know that you're not going to attack them or judge them, and you could disagree with them, but you're doesn't mean like you have to accept everything they're saying or agree with everything, but it's the way we react that can change things, not just for that person, but for us as well. Imagine you're in a heated conversation with someone and you react poorly. Not only did you affect that person, but like what damages did you do to your own self? Like that moment, we feel like satisfied that you had a good comeback and you reacted. But in the long term, the poison released in your body, the anger, disappointment, and your blood pressure going up and all that stuff, like, is that all worth it? And really, at the end, what are you left with? A broken relationship, two people being mad at each
Yeah.
other. So really it didn't solve anything.
Yeah. Well, the best I've been able to do is with my sister, we have very different viewpoints. And I just say, well, according to my news, things are different. I don't argue with her news and I don't get into it. I just go, well, we listen to different things. Ultimately, I'm where I am. I'm not where the news is telling me things are happening. We believe what we believe. We trust the sources we trust for our own reasons.
Yeah,
And there's just no point in arguing it.
sure. I like what you said earlier about choosing to focus on the good things or the good side of someone
Yeah.
or the part that you agree with or the part that you guys both enjoy. So that's always a reminder to when I am in a conflict or disagreement with someone, I have my moments. I try to remember to do the breathing thing. And then I remind myself, what is it about this person that I admire? I change my focus onto that. It's better to love on each other on something that you admire about each other than just being negative. They want to
Yeah.
fight it out.
Unless you love fighting it out. Some people do enjoy that. I'm not one of
Yeah,
those
but
people.
and I have to say one thing
Yeah.
too. I do have friends that we agree to disagree, and we have a moment where we share what we believe, and then we defend our own thoughts. But then we have an understanding. I think it's because of the years of relationship or the type of relationship we have, where we constantly remind each other this has to be from both parties, and it's very rare. But we constantly remind each other what our friendship means to each of us. So, like, even though we're having this heated conversation, it's not going to ruin us. And at the end, we like laugh about something that we enjoy. If you can find that balance, it's cool. But otherwise, keeping it calm is better than going crazy.
Keeping it calm. We're all about keeping it calm.
We're trying to keep
All
it
right.
calm.
So if we're gonna bring this, put a bow on it, and we think about what's the final message, how would you sum it up?
Find a message is it's so beautiful that we're not all the same. That we were not like created in a
Oh,
factory. It was like stamp with the same
oh,
stamp. Awesome
yeah.
that we are able to be free and have different thoughts and different opinions and different beliefs. And if we find it in the romantic way of two human beings attracting each other to have a relationship, and if that relationship is worth enough for us to keep on fighting, we have to make an effort. Sometimes it's one way. You have to be the better person. But if that relationship is valuable for you, then you have to figure out a way to practice to keep it calm and to kind of put a water on the fire, sort of say, to turn off the heat, and we don't have control over the other party, what this person's going to say and do, but we do have control over ourselves. And we just have to create habits of like reminders of going over those three things we strategize: breathing, putting yourself in the other person's, place. How would you want to be treated, and so on and so on, to just make an initiative to try at least. That's my opinion. What?
Right. I agree. In terms of being the better person, I would be careful with that because rather than phrasing it as better, just for your own benefit, to keep a
Yeah,
calm mind,
I agree.
understand that people can think differently from you and still be worth your time.
Absolutely. I like that for
Yeah.
reminding to not shift, point, direction, but to point the finger at me as yes.
All right. I think we've done it. I think we've filled almost an hour. with all this calm mind talk. I think this is one of the hardest things, and this is probably a theme we should talk about more. This is a really hard thing to do. I don't want to romanticize it either. It's hard to listen to people that you think are just out of their minds, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean,
Any closing thoughts?
I have to say from experience that recently I had a friend, we always get into a heated conversation. And recently I practiced this. So I was just like, instead of judging or, I'm going to practice what I'm preaching. So I'm going to put it into work. And I can truly say at the end of our conversation, it was so pleasant and calm myself. I was like, that was nice because I created space for this person to air it out. She was upset and frustrated about what's going on. And I gave her permission to educate me, tell me how she feels and how affected she is. And I just listened. I kept in my mind that I might not be liking what I'm listening, but she's my friend and I really love her and I'm going to give her this space. I was so much calmer. It worked for me.
Did she say anything, or was this just all an internal exercise for yourself?
It was an internal exercise, but what I noticed was at the end of our conversation, we were not mad at each other. We were not, I should say. I was able to calm her down by just listening and not necessarily agreeing with her, but just giving her space to be heard and then like being compassionate about her emotions. And then I think that gave her a sense of calm. So then like I noticed she was calm. I wasn't frustrated for sure. So it benefited me for sure. And I hope it benefited her. But at least as a friend, I know that we didn't disagree. Even though we disagreed, we didn't disagree out loud.
You don't always have to share your opinion, do you? It's like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah. All
I
right.
definitely kept the calm mind.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
great.
you.
No, that was a really encouraging story. I think people need to hear, like, okay, there is some point to this, and there is.
I practiced it.
All right, let's end it there, and we'll talk about something upsetting next time. That we'll keep a calm mind about.
Thank you. Like, why are people wearing what they're wearing?
Yeah.
What's the point?
All right. Bye, Pam.
Thanks. Bye, Ellie.